Josh Holder,
Saul Agnon,
Marcus Boykin,
El Navajas, and the Mexican Sicarios. All right, guys, today we welcome a special guest to talk about episodes 3 and 4 of the Terminalist TV show. Welcome to the pod, superfan Tyler Boer.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Welcome, Tyler.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I was really glad when you reached out. You have a lot of common interest with us and a lot of shared interest with Jack Carr. So tell us a little bit about who you are as a James Reece reader, as a Land Cruiser owner, as a podcaster, and just an all things Jack Carr enthusiast.
Yeah, sure. So I guess I've been in that kind of, I wouldn't say community, but just like that realm of fandom. I listen to a ton of different podcasts like Black Rifle Coffee. It used to be American Range podcasts, or I'm sorry, yeah, it was American Range. Then Sean Ryan's show, Fieldcraft Survival. Danger Close was Jack Carr's. I listened to that before I read the books. Cleared Hot with Andy Stumpf. So I listened to all these shows and was familiar with all these people. And I'm into firearms and shoot a lot. And I'm into. I have my basic different brands I'm a fan of. And things like that. And I was already a fan of Toyota Land Cruisers. I have a new Toyota 4Runner that's my daily driver, but I had always wanted a Land Cruiser. And so I can't remember what it was. I was on vacation with my cousin who I do the podcast with, Greg, and we were in Austin, Texas for Formula One last October. And for whatever reason, I think to travel, I got the audiobooks. And him and I listened to them, got pulled in pretty much our whole vacation by them. And I just like one after another, just crushed out pretty much the whole series pretty quickly while we were on vacation and when we got back. And then I bought hard copies. I got the Shot Through limited edition for In the Blood.
Nice.
Nice. So just a few months ago, a friend of mine found a Land Cruiser FJ62 locally, which is the same kind that Jack has and that James Reece drives in the series. And it was white, just like James Reece's. So it was white is my favorite color on them to begin with, and luckily I was able to acquire it. So that's kind of it's in the garage right now. So it's kind of my weekend vehicle. But my cousin Greg and I have a podcast called Just a Tangent where we review and talk about movies and TV, how they're made, practical effects, stuff like that. We do deep dives on different projects that we're fans of, things like that. So it really was like meant to be. The more I read the books or listened to the books, I was like, oh man, I know exactly what these are. I knew what firearms were being described. I knew what he was thinking, the tactics they were talking about, because a lot of the podcasts, some of them are more serious and talk about tactics and mindset and things like that. But some of them are more fun. But the more I read, I was just sucked into them. It was almost like felt like they were almost written for me a little bit.
You're definitely the target audience for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Even in the show, there's a lot of things in the background that I noticed that I actually took notes on for these 2 episodes. Nice. That I noticed that probably just go by the wayside and people don't notice. It's just set. It's just a set, but really there's a ton of stuff there. Even in the intro sequence, during the title sequence, there's a lot of things that are pretty awesome. So
yeah. I unfortunately didn't get a chance to hop on and talk episode 1 and 2 with you, Mike, or with Chris last night. And so, like this, sorry if I'm being redundant, but I would just have to say this show is being shot beautifully. Like Amazon, broke out the wallet, and
yes,
it just looks amazing. This is not the CW. This is definitely some high quality stuff. Antoine Fuqua, like friggin' awesome director. And I don't know if you guys want to jump into episodes 3 and 4 now, because we get some pretty intense in both episode 3 and 4. We're beginning to learn a little bit more about the plot and everything. And I want to bring it back to like those what you just said, Tyler. The title sequence is really cool. I don't skip it. Like if it's a good title sequence, I don't skip it. If it's bad, like the Stranger Things one, I watch it every time. I love that song. You know, like but this is another one that I have to watch it. So, what did you pick out during, if I don't mind asking you, during the title sequence that like caught your eye?
So the more times I watch it, the cooler it is. A lot of the books that are in the garage, that you know, in the book, in the novel, I believe he has an office where he has his library. In the show, he has his garage where he has his gun safe, which is a Fort Knox, which is made in the USA. It's an awesome gun safe. It's like everyone's dream to have one of those. But so he has that, and a lot of the stickers that are on it are very reminiscent of someone who purchased a lot of firearm stuff. A lot of the stickers were like free with items for companies, like First Spear has a sticker on the side of the safe. They make body armor carriers and things like that for soldiers. There's just a ton of different stuff. And then there's a close up of an archery compound bow that's made by PSE. And that's a knock on bow, which is made by it was created and designed by John Dudley, who's a friend of Jack Carr. Then a lot of the books I noticed are books that's on Jack Carr's monthly reading lists. There's like the Accidental Gorilla and things like that. I think Once an Eagle might be in there too, which is back here on my shelf as well. If you can see, but I'm sure you can't see it in detail behind me, but I have a ton of nonfiction books behind me that are military related. And I was telling Mike before you came on, Chris, that the only fiction books I have are Jack Carr's series on my top shelf right there. So I was going to ask you guys for some recommendations on what to dive into next. But
we got plenty of recommendations.
We do.
A lot of this reading has influenced my knowledge and knowledge base and interests that helped, just catapult my love for these books. So,
well, we've got a ton of fiction and thriller, being the Thriller podcast, tons of recommendations, but let's just get 2 out of the way now, and then we'll reconnect with you later.
All right.
Mitch Rapp, that's got to be number 1, the Vince Flynn series. And today, actually, as we're recording, is the publication day for a new Brad Thor novel, Brad Thor and the Scot Harvath series. So I don't know, Chris, would you agree those are the 2 Tyler's got to jump into?
I mean, how could we not? Like, our first 2 seasons are based off of
yeah.
How many books are in each series?
Each of them have like 21.
Okay.
It's a little daunting to like think
another
about
bookshelf. I got some extra space right here where this model car is. I can move it out of the way.
If you like audiobooks too,
yeah,
like they have some really good. George Guidall reads them. Armand Schultz, right? Reads them for Brad.
Yeah.
They're really good. So
yeah,
you got to read Vince's first book. His first book, Term Limits, is, if you're a Terminalist fan, just think of the similar name there, Term Limits. It's almost probably, I would say, the closest debut book I've read by an author to what Jack did with Terminalist.
Yeah,
Vince Flynn did that decades ago with Term Limits. It's fantastic.
I really think after listening to them in detail, Ray Porter does such a good job with. He has a stage acting background for doing, I believe, Shakespearean plays and things like that. So he's very good at doing characters, including female voices, and he just paints a picture so clearly for me. And it's funny because as we'll get into for these 2 episodes, there are quite a few scenes in the show that are pulled straight from the book, line for line.
Right.
Which, a lot of people are complaining it strays too far from the book, but honestly, I've seen book adaptations get butchered way worse than this, and I really think that we're lucky to get what we got. I really enjoyed it. You don't know where it's going because they're changing things, but regardless, I thought that line for line, how Ray Porter painted the picture in my head is exactly how it appeared on film. I love that.
Yeah, so I purposely have not. I'm not watching ahead. I don't know about if you 2 have watched, on past 4, but I purposely don't want to because I want to influence like when I'm having these conversations. But so far, we've been pretty by the book.
Yeah.
There's some minor tweaks here or there, but I have a couple questions I want to ask you, and maybe if you watch further, you would be able to answer these questions.
I finished the series.
Yeah, we both finished.
Here in here in Pittsburgh, it debuted Thursday night at 8 p.m. for whatever reason, and I watched 3 episodes that night and finished it the next day.
Nice.
Yeah, I've had a crazy weekend, so
Yeah, me too.
I'm just watching them. I watched 3 or 2 today, but yeah. So we get, I guess, obviously one major change, or not major change, but like we don't get the whole, terrorist shooter coming after him and Katie. Instead, it's this, some sort of operator that he, like in episode 3, which is
Gordo.
Jack's cameo, Gordo.
We got to talk about that. We got to jump into. We knew Jack was going to show up at some point. I think it was with Joe Rogan he first announced that, or that's the first time I heard that he was going to actually appear in the show. And I was waiting for it. And one of our buddies who does the Terminal Vengeance YouTube channel, I don't know if you heard us talk to Abraham. He's a high schooler making a YouTube channel reviewing the show. It's pretty awesome. He noticed it in the trailer. He was like, that looks
really?
like Carr in the rear view mirror. Yeah. So he called that out in the trailer with a super quick shot, just a really dark version of the rear view mirror. And he goes, that looks like Jack's eyes and Jack's beard. And you had to really zoom in and kind of lighten up the photo to see it. And a lot of people were like, no, that's a stretch, man. And I was like, Abraham, I kind of see it too. Like, are we crazy? And then boom, that's where he is. He was in that car.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty cool cameo. I think on Joe Rogan he said he was going to have a cameo and that he was going to be fighting James Reece. So he was saying that he was going to be working out and trying to get back into better shape. And so when I saw him in Cleveland, I asked him. That was my one question in the crowd with my hand raised. I said, "Did your cameo make the cutting room floor?" And he said, "Yeah." He didn't give me a yes or no answer, but he just said, "Keep an eye out for episode 3." So. That to me was a yes. So clearly, I don't know if it changed midway through filming, from going to a fight to that shootout. But that shootout has a very good feel of Heat, of the movie Heat, to it.
Right.
And I love. So if we want to dig in real quick, the episode begins with James burning some evidence from the first name to get crossed off the list. Now, I think what's interesting is, in this version, he doesn't know he has the tumor yet. So to me, him burning the evidence means that he's planning on getting away with all of this right now.
Right.
Or at least he's got to get to the next name, because now he's got Saul Agnon.
Yeah. So, he has Saul Agnon. And I really like him meeting up with Katie at the restaurant. It's very similar to how it is in the book. And I love how he scans the room. He's very serious. He has his bomber jacket on with the Land Cruiser patch. And before that scene, when he's still at home, he packs up a couple things from his safe, his M4 and a Benelli shotgun that Ben ultimately uses and later down the road. But
I like how his spidey senses go off in the cafe.
Yeah, you know what? The second time watching it, I thought the same thing. I was like, that's like spidey sense going off.
Yeah, he starts looking around, and what's cool is Katie also gives him this weird look, because she's at the stage of, does she really trust him? Is he off, the reservation? Is he going nuts? And we, as the audience, we don't know if we can trust him yet, if he's a reliable narrator. And this episode, it's called Consolidation. I think it's consolidating the team of bad guys. We're really seeing who's who. Like, we're going to get to Steve Horn soon and that crew. Yeah. So it's consolidating that. But I think it's also consolidating our trust in Reece and Katie's trust in Reece. I mean, she's an eyewitness now. Him saying, we got to move, get out of the restaurant, go, go, go. You see that guy over there. She could just, like the audience, be like, you're just fucking crazy, man. Like, this is all in your head. Yeah. We know you took some trauma. We know you're messed up. But this episode is consolidating our trust in him as the narrator of the story.
Yeah. There's a little nod to the book there, too, when they come out of the restaurant before they get to the cruiser. He says that they must have ISR overhead drone on them, basically, which in the book, when he's told that is how they tracked him, he is almost baffled by it, that they would isolate and basically get a drone to track him in the city on at home in the U.S.
Yeah. Right.
But I love whenever they get in the... What's that?
Sorry, one other nod to the book is he texts Katie, the louder the better, so nobody at the restaurant can hear them.
Yes.
Right. And that's a nod to when Katie kind of one-ups him. That's when we really like Katie in the book. She takes him to the Chinese restaurant where almost nobody speaks English. So he wanted loud, and she kind of outwits him and takes him somewhere they can't even translate what they're saying. So that was something missed in the show, but a little nod to it with that text message.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I like about like sort of the change with Katie is like we get to see her, you know, in the beginning she's purely in this for a story, and she sees like, you know, Reece is damaged, and you know, whatever her motives behind like wanting to tell the story, it is what it is. And then we see her like convert, like you were saying, Mike, coming onto the same page and realizing that there's something more here now. Whereas like I feel like it was a little bit of a leap in the book. Like that was like we talked about it on the pod, Mike, where she just like approaches him and it's very quick, and then she immediately starts trusting him. Here, you know, you can sort of flesh it out a little bit more, and they have to build this relationship. In the book, they also, she's like, she knows him because her father, like her father and his father, like knew each other back in the day. I'm assuming that they're not going to go with that storyline going forward. So you need to like sort of have a way to build this trust, you know, have them become a team. Right. Spoiler alert, maybe eventually, you know, in future seasons. So yeah, I've sort of liked that change.
Tyler, I kind of want your take on Katie, because I think one of the number one criticisms on social media, and in my opinion is completely wrong in many regards, the casting of Constance Wu. Because Chris, what you just described, she plays the role perfectly of that competent, dedicated journalist who, while staying professional, like in the first episode, she had a line like, 12 SEALs lost and shipped home to coffins and no one in command issues a statement. And here she says something about the Navy didn't know he had a tumor and let him go lead a platoon, and he missed his medicals. What are they, optional for a SEAL commander? So she actually wants the scoop, and she's super competent as a journalist.
Yeah.
I don't know why people would be hung up on, oh, she's not a blonde Eastern European white reporter kind of thing. I'm like, no, she is playing the role perfectly for the casting needed to be a competent, dedicated journalist who ultimately could see the personal side of things and become friends with Reece.
Yeah, it's like if the book describes a blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman and she has black hair, brown eye, it's like they're upset about it. It's like she can't fit the part. I think they could totally write her in. They have a connection and a level of trust. This first season really makes sense how they do it, and I think they might ignore the history with his dad and her dad for now. And people were even complaining about that how can that now occur? You could still write it in that Thomas was serving and connected in a different country, wherever she would be, you know. So
yeah, I don't think you even need to, though, the way they set it up, because while that was a cool little connection in the book, that he was the case officer who got her father out, even when the CIA said burn him, leave him, like no, he helped us, we got to get him out, shows a little bit about Thomas Reece.
Yeah,
but the show is clearly not about Thomas Reece yet, so you don't need to tell that right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And Rosie, I was watching with my wife, who is just usually sick of me talking about these characters. She's heard Mitch Rapp and Scot Harvath and James Reece a million times. Yet this time she's like, let's watch the next one. You know, so she's into it. And then I said,
Did she watch the whole season, Mike?
Yeah, we watched it all. But I said, How would you feel if Katie had a personal history with Reece and they knew each other because their fathers worked together? She's like, that would just be so unbelievable. It would be another layer of coincidence.
Almost corny.
That
almost
I don't
cliche.
Need. Exactly.
Almost cliche.
So it worked in the book. I don't think you need it here. Smart move.
So from there, they get in the cruiser, and I love whenever she says running's not going to help, and he says we're not running, and throws it in reverse, and kills Jack Carr, or whatever made-up name they want to give him.
Jack shot first. You know, like Han shot first. Jack shot first. Or Gordo shot first. We should Gordo shot first.
So I think from there, we get introduced to Steve Horn running through the shoot house on his lunch break.
I wondered, what did you think of that? Like I knew that I looked on IMDb that Jay Courtney was going to be Steve Horn. So when I see him going in, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Is this like some sort of corporate, teams building? Like he gets to go.
Kind of. It almost. I mean, it really stems later on. If you aren't further, it gets explained a little bit better. But I mean, basically, without ruining anything, he's a wannabe. If you notice, he runs that course.
I got that.
Very shitty job. he does a very shitty job, and they ask him if he wants to run it again, and he goes, "No, lunch is over." If anybody else is in that position that really cares about that, they would run it
You're
all
running
day
it.
until they got it right. Yeah. I thought Ford. I saw Mike from Forged in that scene, which was pretty cool. He's a former SEAL. He's from a place called Port Allegheny here in Pennsylvania, that's near where I live, and he's he's former SEAL, and he has a clothing line. This one actually, and
Oh, nice.
and he's wearing one of his hats in the shoot house there. He just has a little cameo there, so I thought that was neat.
That's
But
pretty sweet.
a lot of guys from the community in here. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
Jared
definitely.
Shaw's one of the executive producers, but he plays Boozer,
Right.
and he
Right.
was the one that connected Jack Carr and Chris Pratt and everything. So, but yeah, from there, I think that was just a very telling sign that they ask him if he wants to run it again, and he says no, lunch is over. So not only does that mean he's a businessman, business comes first, but that he's a wannabe in the kill
Right.
house. He has shitty reaction chimes.
The way they build Steve Horn in just a matter of seconds on screen, I don't even know if that scene is a minute long, and then him walking to his office with his 2 bodyguards and Saul trying to get his attention, the way he's ignoring him, like they're doing so much character building with the visuals and with very, very limited dialogue in a short span of time that you automatically know the archetype that Steve Horn is supposed to represent.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's brilliant.
Chris, what do you think of Steve?
Yeah, no, he's a piece of shit. Like, wannabe douchebag.
It gets much worse. There's something that he doesn't do. It's just something about him that you'll see later that is a huge
Small
no-no
detail.
in that community. It's a huge no-no in that community, and it's just a very wannabe move. So,
And I thought the one line where he's like, be respectful. He was a Navy SEAL commander. I was like, get the hell out of here. Like,
Yeah.
you have no, because obviously I know the whole plot of the story because I read the book.
you'll see that detail comes in a little bit later, and you'll
Yeah, it
see
comes
he is
back,
kind of genuine in that comment. But
Okay. All right. But yeah, no, and then you could, I thought the sort of peon relationship he has with Agnon, who is,
Sean Gunn.
it's Sean Gunn, James Gunn's brother, which I thought
Yes.
that was pretty funny.
yeah, I you can obviously tell they got him because he's willing to do anything on camera.
Yeah.
Oh, he was good
Yeah.
though in that interrogation scene.
Absolutely.
He
That was
good.
a note. Yeah, that was a note I took. If we want to move to the interrogation scene, I like how Ben did the recon for James, since he's kind of
Yep.
wanted. So Ben does the recon for him at the golf course, and Saul commands. I wouldn't say commands respect, but obviously has respect. He has these bodyguards around him, running the deals. Basically running deals the same way that James runs firearms and things like that. He knows what to say, what to do. He has a strategy. But as soon as he sees the Grim Reaper in front of him, that demand of respect quickly turns to absolute bone-chilling fear.
So true.
And I just thought it was awesome. They threw in a couple details. They swapped out waterboarding for the bag,
Right.
But
Right.
but him vomiting while gagged is in the book.
Yeah, that's from the book. Yeah.
love
And the
that.
stripper.
So
That's another
Yeah,
thing. from
James
the book.
going to the strip club.
Oh,
James
yeah,
from the
yeah.
book.
The drugs.
that's like line for line from
It
the book.
was. I'm so surprised. Literally just looking at these 5-10 minutes, I'm so surprised people could complain about getting too far from the book. Up to this point, I think, beyond Chris, you're going to see, there might be some things we'll have to dig into, but to this point, episodes 1, 2, 3, and even we're about to get there 4, so much respect given to the book. Even just little things like the stripper scene is how he gets the drugs. The interrogation methods that he's already used on Josh Holder and now using on Saul Agnon. And we're going to have to get to one in episode 4. One other thing, though, about what's going on here, we're kind of consolidating what we know also about the bad guys. The onion is being peeled back because we get name drops of New Bellum. And Steve Horn's like, Saul, you got to close the deal. New Bellum's going to be huge. We got to sell this company. And Mike Tedesco is brought in. So Mike owns the company that created the drug, RD
4895.
Yeah.
RD 4895. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're kind of figuring out that there is some sort of company, a shell company, invented something. It's going to go in this multi-tens of billions of dollar deal, they hope. And Saul Agnon is the closer and got to go make it happen. Did you catch one other cameo at the golf course? Bryson
Bryson?
DeChambeau.
Yeah. Which if you pay attention, I think that's pretty funny. So Saul says, "Who are we partnered with?"
Yeah.
And they say some name, and he says, "No, I wanted Bryson DeChambeau."
I want Bryson.
And the scene cuts to them teeing off, and the announcer goes, "Now for Capstone Industries, Bryson DeChambeau." So from the time that he talked to that lady to the time of teeing off, he got what he wanted.
How much do you think you have to pay to get Bryson DeChambeau to come on your media outlet and just hit one bomb of a drive? Like, what's the going rate?
Go ask the Saudis, because he just left the PGA Tour to go play for them. So I don't know how Jack Carr would feel about Bryson DeChambeau now. But anyways, this is not that podcast.
They're all taking the Saudi money, all the PGA golfers.
But
oh yeah, he got a pretty penny.
I'm trying to think if there's any other details. There's some stuff about Tedesco. There's some details about that get revealed later, but Chris, I won't spoil anything. So
I guess, and I guess the most important thing that this episode ends on is the interrogation. Saul gives up two names. One, Steve Horn.
Marcus Boykin. Yeah.
Tells him about Project RD4895, and then Marcus Boykin. And the second that name is dropped, I know exactly how episode 4 is starting off.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
Yeah, which I really enjoyed how it does start. But go ahead, Chris.
I was kind of surprised at how quickly we are, as the viewer, learning, all the major players. This is going pretty quick, giving us information. I would have thought, and I know that's how it happens in the book as well, but I would have thought as a TV show, they would have played out this, who's in the background longer. I guess ultimately he has the list and he has to start checking names off. But yeah, were you guys surprised that we were getting this scene this quickly?
Well, there was another thing I thought about that, because this episode is jump starting that whole part of the plot. In episodes 1 and 2, it was more focused on the psychological parts of Reece, and he acted in those episodes with the crazy look in his eye. He was going through the trauma. I think they wanted to establish that part of the story, the James Reece internal, do the people around him think he's crazy? And this one, they really quickly jumped to the external. And Jack Carr's cameo was the one that made the show flip that switch to, now you're on board with Reece. We know he's not crazy. Let's start peeling it back.
Yeah, everyone questions what's going on, but then once he gets the target package from Jack Carr, it's clear that something is going on. Now he has actual evidence. It's not just something he saw or something he feels. They have evidence.
And witnesses, Katie.
Yeah. Yep.
Exactly. So we've consolidated. Now we're ready for Detachment, episode 4, and we get a really, really awesome opening. How did you feel seeing Reece and Lucy walking through the woods?
I thought that I was like, oh, this is a good flashback, and the way they end it is awesome. But what I really caught was that James has Sitka gear on, which is what he is wearing in the book. And so Sitka gear is made, I believe, in Bozeman, Montana. It's a type of hunting gear with specific camo pattern that's specific to that brand. But one of the guys that works for them is a guy that used to run the cold weather training for the SEALs in Alaska. So he took his knowledge base from cold weather training and applies it to Sitka to make gear that's good for cold weather. So I thought that was really cool. But I thought there was a detail that the first time around, it's not a huge point, but just that, in the book, I believe this part takes place in Wyoming.
Yeah.
Right.
And, after what happens with Marcus Boykin happens, which he shoots him in a Porsche Cayenne instead of a G-Wagon, which is weird because Steve Horn's driving a G-Wagon. I feel like they should have switched to make it the same as the book. But whenever he goes back and sees Liz, she's waiting. So they must have landed, off screen, and him get out and prep and walk and everything and like stuff like that,
as she watch the Crimson Tide game.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty awesome. The detail is that Liz is already helping him without really. They didn't really introduce her except for after the funeral that much.
Yeah, I felt like there was something missing there.
Do we get the flashback to Liz this episode, Tyler? Because I don't want to say too much. If no, okay,
no,
never mind.
That's much later.
Yeah,
that's
Chris, if you felt something is missing, you know the backstory, obviously, but the show does give it to us, so I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
the show does
Yeah.
give it to you,
Roll
but it's
Tide.
cool. She's flying a plane that's a single turbo prop that's made in Switzerland since like the 90s. So it's pretty cool. It's like an older plane that she could probably afford if she's doing her own outfit.
I like having you on here. I didn't pick out any of this stuff. I
Yeah.
haven't
Yeah,
picked out any of this stuff.
Can
I'm
you
a big
agree to be our like
nerd.
gear guy? We can just hit you up whenever we're reading
Absolutely,
a book or watching
anytime.
movies and we need a question
Anytime.
answered. Okay.
Yeah, actually, whenever you guys review Savage Son, the book, I would like.
Oh yeah.
That's Terminal List is my favorite novel I've ever read. It had the biggest impact on me, but Savage Son to me is perfect. 10 out of 10. Couldn't be better. It's fantastic. It's so good.
Nice.
But so I wasn't a big fan of the second one for a long time, but there's events that happen in the second one that you
Right.
couldn't have 5 and 6 without number
Exactly.
2. So definitely important. And
True
I've
Believer does a lot.
appreciated I've appreciated True Believer more as time goes on.
Savage Son might be a better story or better novel, but I think True Believer does enough to, because the way Terminalist ends and the way this TV show ends, like how the heck do you follow that up? And I think
Yeah.
True Believer pulls that off, and it's really brilliant.
Well, I think
But
the way
I agree, it's not as good a story as Savage Son.
Yeah, from what I recall, Jack always set out to write Savage Son because it's an homage to The Most Dangerous Game, which is his
Right.
favorite short story.
Right.
Right.
And he said that he needed to develop that character some. So the first one is like the apex predator with nothing left to lose, but it's a man that's willing to do anything because he's already dead. So the second one, he said he had to bring him back to life, basically. So this term, True Believer, is about him finding a new reason to live, basically.
Purpose.
So,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, new purpose. So, but back to the show. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, we got to keep going, Mike, because I just finished True Believer, and I'm going to start Savage Son next week.
Nice.
So we got to do all of them.
Yo,
Also,
let's
before
find
you
some
guys
time.
move any further, I would recommend going on YouTube and finding on Ironclad, which is a group. I believe they just produce media,
Yeah.
but they're paired with Jack Carr for stuff. But they developed trailers for each book, and so they're only about 2 minutes long. They don't really reveal any actors' faces or anything, but there's audio to them and stuff, and they are really cool to watch before you read the
Oh,
books.
nice.
The one for
check that out.
Terminal List is cool. The one for True Believer is awesome. The Savage Son one's cool. Yeah, they give you a little bit of imagery. Like Savage Son, there's a Land Rover Defender 90, and it's based off of one of Jack Carr's buddies. Well, in the trailer is that Defender 90, so you can kind of get some imagery
nice.
of what's coming up. But they're cool little 2-minute trailers. But yeah, I believe each book has one. But they're pretty
I'll
cool.
check that out.
Yeah, we got to check those out when we review the books. Yeah, let's try to
Yeah.
do True Believer sometime the next week or two, Chris.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. Hey, we get Tony. What do you
Yeah.
guys think? Because this
That's
is
next on my
totally
list.
out of left field. You know, this Tony Leon character at the FBI with the Fugitive Task Force, and he's really curious who else is in the car with Reece with the hit on Gordo outside the cafe. What do you think about our introduction to him?
I like him. I like his acting. I'm trying to think. Is he working with U.S. Marshals or is he just a local yokel?
I think Mac is the marshal. The woman he's with is
Okay.
the marshal, and he's FBI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's FBI. So, in my opinion, this is probably the biggest stray away from the books is that
Yeah.
I really think that this is our replacement for Freddie Strain. But I like him. I like his attitude. He knows what he's looking at. He's obviously experienced. Like everyone's trying to call out what James Reece is doing when he shoots Jack Carr in the surveillance footage, and he clearly knows what's happening. Which
Right.
in the book, James Reece says you keep shooting until the target's down. It's not two to the
Right.
chest and one in the head like in movies and stuff.
The Mozambique method, yeah.
Yeah, Tony actually notices that and even says like he's continuing fire until there's no more movement.
He even says
right.
he's accounting for the angle of deflection in the glass in case he didn't hit
Yep.
center mass or wherever because the glass deflected the bullet. He's got to hit more,
Yeah.
and he's got to work his way to the window to get a clean shot with no glass. Yeah.
Yeah. If this is a change that they get rid of Freddie Strain to replace with Tony, what do you think about that? And do you think why wouldn't they just name Tony Freddie Strain if that's the replacement?
You'd have to flesh him out more. And obviously this we're hypothesizing about season 2 because
Right.
True Believer is huge on the Freddie Strain story. So you'd have to do a lot to get Tony there. But I could see that happening, especially because of things that happen episode 7, episode 8. Tony and Reece are definitely on a collision course, so there's more coming to their relationship. And I think they're planting seeds. I think you're onto something. I wouldn't have nailed it as a Freddie Strain replacement, but I could see their relationship having space that can be developed.
The only reason I say that is for what comes later.
It could just be that you obviously they have if it gets green light for a second or third season, you want to have these characters in place to then like in the coming seasons we're going to build upon them, but they don't have time to fully flesh out, his relationship. And so let's say it doesn't get renewed for a second season. They just have this Tony Leung guy, it's sort of like I don't know. I don't want to say a hedge, but they obviously there's not enough time. It would just be bogged down if you really wanted to set up. I'm assuming hopefully they bring in the Hastings at the very end, or I haven't gotten there yet. So
don't tell him too much. Let him sweat it out. Don't tell him.
Okay. Yeah, we're not gonna say much, but yeah, we'll leave it at that. But speaking of greenlighting more seasons, I feel like I'm compelled after completely crapping on the critics my last two recordings. Let me just go ahead and give an update on the Rotten Tomatoes score of how the Terminalist is doing. 37% critic score and a 93% audience score.
Nice.
So I've already talked about the narrative. I'm not going to get into the narrative, but the narrative is in full swing with that one. So just a little Rotten Tomatoes updates for the folks.
Absolutely.
93, baby. 93.
From what I recall, so I was big into Reacher when it came out, the series. I think it was a week to 2 weeks, and they said it got renewed for 2 more seasons. They renewed it in one shebang because its viewership was so high in such a short amount of time. And
Reacher was a big hit.
Same with Jack Ryan. I think they did a season 2 and they renewed it for 2 more. So 3 and 4 are finishing up being filmed, and they're going to release those consecutive years. So I think we have about 2 weeks to wait before we should hear something. If the viewership is really solid,
it's definitely getting renewed. If it doesn't, I'd be shocked.
I think so as well. And here's why. So Chris Pratt really doesn't have that much lined up after this, and Jack Carr has always said it's going to depend on Chris's schedule. Jack Carr told me at the meetup that he's working on screenplays for True Believer, and that basically it's just going to depend on Chris's schedule. Well, to me, that doesn't depend on Amazon. I think Amazon renewing it would be the first answer.
Right. I think that's what would free up Chris's schedule.
Yeah, and I think Chris has his own production company now, and he signed a deal with Amazon. That's why Tomorrow War was on there, and that's why this is on there. And I think he's going to need more projects for that production company, and he liked playing this role. This is his first true serious role. And that was something I was going to ask you guys about in the book. There are moments when I find myself laughing or chuckling at stuff, but whether it's what James Reece says or does, and there's one line where you can see Chris Pratt peek through James Reece a little bit, and that's at the stripper club when she says, if you're a cop, you have to tell me. He goes, well, I don't think that's true, but I'm not.
That's right. Yep.
I find it that if you make it too serious, there needs to be a little comedy, and there is between Chris and
he and Ben.
He and Ben definitely have comedy
with the Big Lebowski. Don't tell me you're in the golf tournament dressed like the Big Lebowski.
I just to comment on that, I feel like he almost has to go above and beyond to be not funny, because Chris Pratt is funny, and obviously he's been in things, but you just look at him and you think of, I don't know, Star-Lord or whatever his name's character was on Parks and Rec. I didn't watch that show.
Andy.
But
Andy.
Oh, Andy I did know that. And it's like, all right, I'm being serious, and I could feel him almost at points. I actually wanted to ask you guys, what did you think during the whole season of Pratt's performance? I could see him at times. He's sort of straining to be a little bit more serious when he's obviously a comedic actor.
Well, dude, think about the range that he's putting on so far, even in just these episodes. You've got this crazy look in his eye when he's like, look at that guy in the mirror, he's after us, or they got drones on us and we don't know if we can trust him yet. So he can pull that off of just this look in his eye is nuts. And then when he's with Lauren and Lucy, it's so heartfelt when he's playing the guitar and laughing about, I'm going to sing you a song if you don't show me that picture. And then, guys, we got to get to
Yeah.
this final scene of episode 4 because look at how he flips the switch to operator mode when he's going into Mexico. I
Right.
mean, that Marco, the estate and getting there and meeting Marco's family. And he dropped something about knowing Thomas Reece and his father. And Reece talks about growing up here and he's sentimental. And then cut scene a few minutes later and he's on the ground using his tomahawk. And eventually we're going to have to talk about the kill on the Sicarios and the drug cartel. But he's flipping a switch and this range is ridiculous that he has.
Yeah. I agree. I think he's serious enough to be believable. I think when I was all in was at the end of episode 1 when he finds Lauren and Lucy.
Yes.
I think that was pretty rad acting for him. But to this down in Mexico, I think it's clear that Marco is a Land Rover Defender fan because he has a Defender 110 he picks Reece up in, and then at home when the gates open, I see a new Defender 90 and an old Defender 90, which is what Rafe drives, is a Defender 90. So I think it's just cool that those vehicles are in there. It's keeping to that those are just known as like true off-roader and cool guy vehicles, and like, you know, it's always been like Land Cruiser, Land Rover debate, just like in the book with him and Rafe. So I thought that was pretty neat that those are just in there in the background. They don't necessarily have a conversation about them, but they're just there.
Yeah, good touches. What do you think about that line where Marco's kid is like so upset of like, I wish I could have been there for Lucy. I didn't know she was sick. They obviously had to tell her kind of a white lie about what happened.
Right.
This show is just pulling on the heartstrings, and then a second later, we're slaughtering dudes open and pulling out their intestines and nailing them to a tree. Like, it's incredible.
That was intense. That was super intense.
Yeah, and I was wondering why they gave James, or why they gave James 2 R&D tomahawks from Winkler, and now I know, because unless they should do it off screen, he leaves one there.
In his head,
but I wanted to talk about Taylor Kitsch real quick. He plays Ben. He runs that Benelli shotgun extremely professionally and proficiently, and I had heard that on set he broke his ankle during filming that, and he actually did a couple more takes after it broke, and that's why if you watch, he gets hit, and if you have subtitles on, he says "my foot." That's, I think, where he breaks his ankle, I believe. So pretty sure what's there on film that you see in the final edit is him breaking his ankle. But he runs that shotgun extremely professionally and correctly. Same with Chris and how he runs his M4 in that. He goes to slice pie or pie some corners and stuff, and they set up. I don't know if you recall from the books, but they always talk about L ambushes and keeping it simple with tactics, and that's what they do with those first 4 or 5 Sicarios. Is I believe it's Marco's security guy, James, and Ben are in the warehouse, and then there's a sniper straight ahead of them, and they create the L ambush, and they just unload on those guys. So I think it's cool to see tactics from the book.
Yeah. What do you think about the decision, though, to go in a little heavier? Because in the book, while they're doing some of the same tactics, it's really Reece on his own, and he's going more stealthily and quietly through the cartel house, and he's going room by room. Like there's even a scene where he leaves some prostitutes alive, and so he puts the hatchet in one guy's head quietly. I mean, they're going in heavy on this op. I thought for TV that was probably a better decision because this show already has a lot of dark, slow-moving kind of reveals, and so make this scene just a bomber all-out action scene at the halfway point to end episode 4.
I think the dark, I can't say much because I don't want to ruin it for Chris, but I think dark stealthy quiet. I think dark stealthy quiet stuff comes later,
exactly,
and you kind of get that satisfaction. But I don't know, some of the decisions I wish were the same, but at the same time I like seeing something different. I don't blame them or dislike the changes. As far as the kill at the end, I think it's clear that obviously it's not going to now occur to the character that it does in the novel.
Right.
So now you're kind of guessing as to what's going to happen to him.
Yeah, I was happy to see that we still got that, that execution type.
Yeah.
But obviously it wasn't done on the person who we thought it was going to happen to. Yeah, and just to like sort of piggyback your comment, Tyler, I think like there has to be, and if I think I know what you're talking about in terms of the future episodes, there needs to be some sort of not discrepancies, but differences between these action sequences to not make them, sort of run through people's heads. And I think that's one easy way is to take this scene, turn it into an all out. All right, we're gonna come in hot and heavy, as opposed to just a single person, count being the the counter operative. So I didn't mind the change, and I actually think like it just helped beef up the story and make it a little bit more interesting. Yeah.
And when you think about it in the book, it's one man versus about 13, I think, and 12 or 13. And in this, it's a sniper takes out a couple, but mainly the head security guy doesn't kill many people. It's Ben and James taking out almost everybody together anyways. And I mean, Ben soaks quite a few rounds into the dude that hit him. So, which I thought was a pretty cool
It's
touch.
Also another way to sort of put Ben into this place.
Yeah.
And get him closer to James, because, in the book, he's obviously, we're told that they have this big relationship, and we see like a couple moments of it, and obviously he's feeding James information the entire time. But
in the book, he more gives James information, aims him, and lets him off the leash. In this, he's partaking in these events quite well.
I was wondering if they were doing that purposely for the readers. Like throwing them off to like, maybe not like specifically for the readers, but like when they thought about it, like, oh, the readers would like this because maybe it's not even.
I was going to say, I don't know how I edit this, to be honest, because we're getting a little deep into some spoilers here. So I don't know about that.
I'll reel it in.
Segment there.
I'll reel it in. But no, I questioned for quite a while.
No, I agree with you.
What they were going to do.
And their relationship, though, is also explored to this point, Ben and Reece, that is, through little side chats, like when they're going through the data on the hard drive, or when Reece is packing up his bag, or he shows him a target package. We haven't established them operating together yet. And so the fact that Ben pulls him to the side and says, dude, Aaron, the security guy's right. Sniper shot's the better play. And Reece says, Ben, I have to go in and find El Navajas is the guy, the knives in this cartel.
Yeah.
I got to see his forearm. I got to know if he's the guy who hit me in the MRI. I got to know if he was the one who took out Lauren and Lucy. I have to do this face to face. And Ben's like, I'm right there with you, brother. So this scene is also reestablishing them downrange, what they did do together, what they're still willing to do for each other. Because all so far we've got of Ben is him talking. He's just been allowed to talk.
Yeah, he did some recon for him, but nothing that would connect him to James that would get him in trouble.
And he did say, I'm agency, so I can't really blow my cover or go straight with you too much. And that comes up later in the show of how, since he's agency, he does have a job he has to still do. He can't really be there at every minute with Reece.
Yeah, and the Sicario... go ahead, Chris.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, I liked how they kept, in the book, it's Lauren who shoots one of the Sicario, or the gang lords to show that, all right, this was the one, but I like how they sort of kept that nod, but instead they made it James who cuts the one guy, right?
But we don't know for sure the guy who got cut in the MRI in the forearm was necessarily the one at the Reece house. We're kind of told they are the same person, but Rosie, so again, my wife knows nothing of the story. She's like, did they ever get the guy who actually killed the girls? And I was like, well, we were led to believe it was the drug cartel guy. They said the forearm thing.
It's implied because at the MRI they have James's gun, which I can't recall if they ever said. Right. They took it from the house, killed the girls, and went to the MRI place.
That's the connection. Perfect.
And I see people bitching about who gets an MRI at night, and somebody commented on there, I schedule MRIs and I just finished one up. It's 9 p.m.
That was funny. That guy I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? Like, come on.
People bitch in that group just to bitch, but
they're just nitpicking.
What group is this?
There's a Terminalist group and a Jack Carr group, and
on Facebook.
Actually, Mike, I was going to mention, I can't believe I got half of that group to react to my little review paragraph. 1,000 people reacted to that post.
Oh man, I didn't see that many comments, but okay, I'm gonna have to go back and read through that thread.
Yeah, there's not a ton of comments, but just a ton of people reacted to it. But
Ty, would you be willing to come back and do a whole series kind of quick wrap up discussion? Because we love your take on this. And something else we can do maybe is we could dig into some of these comments and people's complaints and either say,
I'll go screenshot some.
Yeah,
I'll go screenshot a couple. Yeah,
maybe
that's
we'll
fine.
give it a week or two to sink in. We'll maybe get a chance to rewatch or rethink about the show, and we'll come back and share some thoughts on that.
If did you guys record with Jack yet?
Tomorrow.
Okay.
Tomorrow night.
If you, if I'm sure you guys have just a list of questions for him, but he does the bad reviews.
Yes.
He talks.
love
Well,
that.
we'll basically be doing that for the show. So, but something I did want to bring up too is, it happened with Saul Agnon, that in the presence of the Grim Reaper, he pretty much shits himself and becomes a puddle in front of the Grim Reaper. But whenever the Sicario, he's big and tough as well, and has a presence until James pulls out the Sayok tomahawk.
Right.
And once that happens, then he kind of knows it's there's no fighting. And I just like the fear that it instills in the characters.
When he's dragging him out, when Ben asks him, is that the guy with the forearm, injury?
Yeah.
And Reece just drags him into that shed, which is something we saw in the trailer. When I saw it in the trailer, I was like, something about how the angle it's filmed at or how he looks. I was like, I don't know if this is going to hit. Man, that hit when he was dragging that dude out of the house. It hit hard.
Absolutely. And I thought it was cool, the action in the house. So that guy's in there with his little arm wound, and he has a pistol, and they're on opposite sides of a wall. And so instead of pieing that corner, James just goes outside and looks through the window into that room and shoots him.
That's right.
But I enjoyed a lot of the tactics and the gun work and stuff, and a lot of the guys on set. The entire SEAL team at the beginning, except for Patrick Schwarzenegger and Chris Pratt, are all real former SEALs, which really I thought was pretty awesome.
Let's go back then. I want to ask you about that first scene. What do you think about the Syrian chemical weapons tunnels as opposed to the mountaintop in Afghanistan?
I think the change was made to make it just the 12 SEALs, because if you do the other one, I think maybe the sewer thing was made for a visual choice, which I actually kind of dig it. But I think the other option is, from what I recall, all those Rangers in the QRF, the Quick Reaction Force, die.
They die as well. Yeah.
Yeah, which would be an enormous shitstorm that would be all over the news. And in the show, they try and even Katie says, not even a comment from the Admiral. So, in my opinion, it was done to kind of keep it lower key. It's not out in the open. All they know is that there was an ambush, and they lost pretty much everybody but 2 people. Which what did you guys, Chris? What do you think so far up to this point? Are you happy with how it is?
Yeah, no, I'm really happy. I think that, with the pilot, if the pilot was filmed first, then maybe the change would be, because obviously that's like just a bunch of explosions, right? That's how it happens, and then like the guys come in from the mountaintop to get them when they're storming.
You get Donnie's head in a helmet, just like in the book there.
Right. That was intense. I think like maybe it's just a choice to have them, in a smaller space, a little more confined. It just like it's generally easier, because you can tell like the show definitely widens up as we go, past the pilot.
Yeah.
Episode 2, which I wasn't on, but I really like that episode. I just like how it's, we're slowly building up, learning more about, and I try to think about the show as if I didn't know the book, or I hadn't read it, and like how I would appreciate it. That's kind of cool. How I try to get Caroline to watch it, but we have 4 kids, and so I had to keep going and watch it myself. But yeah, no, I think anyone's gonna like this show. I don't know why. My dad is starting it tonight, so we'll see how he likes it.
A lot of people in the comments that are positive are people that didn't read the book. They love it.
Oh, that's
from
good.
what I can see. But yeah, I also think maybe the change to the sewer instead of the mountaintop might be because to do that type of ambush and the explosions to kill all those people, it would be very complex. And like I said, that would be an immediate shitstorm that everyone would know about. And maybe it would be clear that your average jihad probably couldn't pull it off. Whereas down in those sewers, kind of just some tripwires with claymores and C4 and stuff, maybe a little more believable. But I think they just tried to contain it, and whenever it's out on an open mountaintop range, it doesn't feel contained. Trying to hide that event from happening to the public. So I think maybe being hidden down there in the sewers is a little more just the feeling of being closed in.
Right. Yeah. Right. I also think a hit on a house and then it explodes, kind of in the mountains of Afghanistan, has really been done before. It's
especially with like a secondary explosion once
Exactly.
backup comes in and things like that. I think that's been done.
It's all been
decent
done.
amount.
But seeing the tunnel and Boozer having to crawl up the tunnel to make contact with the QRF team to get on the comms, and then having this team on this beach to extract them. Yeah, I thought visually this was a much smarter choice for something that's new and hasn't been done before.
Yeah. I will say something I miss from the book that I wish was in there. I don't mind a lot of the changes. Watching through the second time, I'm still enjoying it. I'm catching more details, especially at the house in the garage and stuff.
Right.
There's just your average American things in there. There's bicycles hung up. I think there's a kayak in there. He has a Harley motorcycle that's probably from the back. The flashback with Marco going to Sturgis.
Right.
But I really miss in this sequence specifically at this time period in the book. Once people realize what's happening and who's coming for them, there's a fear that most of them get.
Mm-hmm.
And in this, the show doesn't show that nor talks about it. They aren't worried of what's coming. They don't really prepare for it. There's almost an arrogance to the remaining members of the list. And also there's a big change up from what I recall in the book. Saul Agnon gives him quite a few members of the list.
Gives him pretty much the whole list. Right?
Yeah, which I really enjoyed. So whenever Saul only gave him 2 names, I was like, come on, don't tell me that they're going to have 2 more bad guys or 3 more bad guys when they reveal Lorraine later. And basically it's just going to be like a long drawn out thing to kill these 3 people. But it's
a
not
good
that
decision
bad.
though for TV because, I could see people who can't follow the story already being like Josh Holder to Saul Agnon to Steve Horn. We're already getting name overload, if you will. Like by episode 4, you kind of already forgot. You forgot who Josh Holder was because it was such a cool hit in episode 2, but you almost forget because we've moved on so much. So I don't know if I needed more names. And Saul, he sung like a bird. He not only gave up Marcus Boykin and Steve Horn, but he gave up Capstone, New Bellum, RD4895. So I felt like I got just enough info where you're kind of confused. You kind of want that mystery, where if you gave more of a name dump visually in terms of a TV show, you might have lost a lot of people.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
I think there's a cool part there during the Saul Agnon interrogation in the book. Once James kind of gives him a little bit of a hint that he might live through this, he dumps the information and gives it all to him. And then, of course, kills him anyways. But there's a point in the book where he kind of lets Saul know that there's a possibility he could make it through this. If you pay attention to the dialogue when James is talking about there's men who have died for a cause, and you aren't one of them. Well, to me, I think in Saul's head, he's thinking, well, if I don't have to die for a cause, if I just give it up, I'll live. So as soon as he realizes he could live, he gives it up.
He got played.
Right.
He gives it up.
Right.
Which I really like. It's a different way of doing it, but it's the same trigger and end result as the book.
Yeah.
To this point, who is your favorite on-screen kill from the list?
I mean, it has to be if we're 3 and 4, it's got to be the Sicario. With the tribe walk around the post.
I think that is definitely the best kill in terms of most gruesome, and it was Lauren and Lucy's killer, so it's like F yeah, justice.
Yeah, and I think that's why they put that gruesome kill with that killer,
with that character.
Too.
Yeah. Yep. When they did that, I was like, that was actually a really smart move. And then something that comes later with the character who didn't have that sort of ending, I also thought was a very smart move. But I'm going to save that. So this little flip flop of who gets which type of kill, I thought was a really smart move. But I'm going to still say my favorite is Josh Holder. I don't know why. I liked when Reece. I loved in episode 2 when he recons the apartment building and he's checking the locks and he's jumping over the staircase down from the bike path.
That was something that was like pulled straight out of my head from how Ray Porter describes it.
Straight out of the book, straight out of Ray Porter's description. So for some reason that one sits with me.
Yeah, I don't know why. I love the dialogue in that one that isn't in the book. It's kind of in Reese's thoughts, and there are a lot of thoughts that are in the book as thoughts that are just dialogue in here. And he tells Josh Holder that you stupid fucks killed him with the wrong fucking gun. And
Yes,
I don't know why I
exactly.
love that line. So I didn't mind that they
Yes.
changed stuff like that. I enjoyed it. So, but
Yeah, it's little changes like that is making me really enjoy the series.
Absolutely.
yeah. I know on the podcast review you guys did of the book, you talked about hoping to see the list, and I
Yes.
knew that we would, and I thought it was pretty cool that
Oh,
they
it
show
paid
it
off.
just about every episode on the
Yeah,
back of
pretty
who's
much.
crossed
Yes.
off and who's added to it. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I just think some of the brutality, it's definitely there, but I don't know. It's kind of what drew me to the book a little bit in a way. But
Dude, it's in there.
it's definitely there. I'm really excited for if it gets renewed for another season and possibly Savage Son. That's kind of what I'm here for now. But no, I really enjoyed it for a TV series. I hope they release it on disc. That's something I have an enormous. Mike, I'll send you a picture of my movie collection. It's 400, 500 Blu-rays deep, alphabetized,
Damn.
Oh wow.
and I only buy stuff that I really enjoy, and I watch things pretty often. And I really hope they release that on disc so I can have it on my shelf.
Nice.
Okay.
How many Blu-rays can you fit in a Land Cruiser?
Amazon will probably try to push it towards you. So
Yeah, we'll see. They didn't release Reacher yet, but they did release Jack Ryan seasons 1 and 2. So there's hope.
okay.
There's hope. It's
All
not
right,
like
cool.
Disney Plus where they haven't released anything. So
Right. Well, Tyler, it's been a blast. We absolutely are going to have you back on the show. Invite you again.
Yes.
sounds good, guys. Thanks.
But before we let you go, how about you tell the folks where they can find you and where they can find your movie review podcast?
Yeah, our podcast is on Spotify and iTunes. It's called Just a Tangent. And then I'm available, probably easiest to contact me on Instagram. It's TRD.Tomahawk.
Cool.
TRD.Tomahawk. Nice. Very nice. Dude, thanks for joining us. What a blast.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for inviting me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tyler. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys too. Thanks.
As always, we need to thank our patrons, our special operator Sherry F., our special agents Daryl, Kevin, George, Matt, Dawn, Dennis, Peggy, Catherine, Ray, Bridget, Jeff, and Mark. Please subscribe, rate, and review using your favorite podcasting platform. Find us at thrillerpod.com or at Thriller Podcast. And as always, slow is smooth and smooth is fast.